do the right thing, get a job, support their argument, and pay their taxes for the fair.
Congressman, let's talk about the economy for a minute.
Sure.
South Arkansas, we're still having a lot of problems down here, lots of layoffs.
Yeah.
Columbia County's unemployment is probably at a 20-year record,
Yeah.
over 9%.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what you've been doing and what you've been working on to help stimulate the economy in Arkansas and South Arkansas.
Well, I would say, in the macro sense, we're trying to reduce government spending, which will reduce government borrowing, and that means there'll be more credit available for the private economy to create jobs that are lasting with decent wages and good benefits to get people back to work. In a more targeted sense, say, for Columbia County, just this last week, for instance, we passed for the first time in 40 years a farm bill that is just farm bill programs, but has some important measures in there, for instance, for the timber and forestry products industry to get the EPA out of our forest, or let our state forestry commission manage national forest land so we can have more harvesting there that will provide more jobs, that require the EPA to act more on sound science so their regulations aren't hurting jobs, whether it's in the forestry industry or the oil and gas industry or the agricultural industry and so forth.
But every time I see you, I try to ask you a question about natural gas and why the United States and why the government isn't using more natural gas in everything that it does. What can be done to stimulate the use of natural gas, which we have in abundance in the U.S. and especially in South Arkansas?
Well, you're right that America has become really not just the Saudi Arabia of coal, which is something that Jimmy Carter said 35 years ago, but the Saudi Arabia of gas and oil as well, because of the combination of directional drilling and hydraulic fracturing. And we should view that as a valuable resource to provide jobs and also to help our economy grow here. There's several things that we can do. One example, for instance, would be to encourage the export of natural gas, because there's lots of countries where the prices of natural gas are very high, and we have an excess of reserves here in the United States compared to our use. If we export that, then we provide more jobs here in Arkansas. You also have the ability of governments, whether it's federal, state, or local, to provide cars that use more natural gas, and that would help create a marketplace for natural gas stations, just like we have normal gas stations around the country. So there's several measures we can do to take advantage of what's a great resource for Arkansas and America.
The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, if you prefer, is still coming at us, despite the Republicans' best efforts to repeal it or bring it back. And really all that most Americans know is that come October 1st, they can start signing up for some type of health coverage. In some instances, this will be subsidized to some Americans. In other instances, people just have to sign up or they're going to face a penalty.
Yeah.
And that's basically all that most Americans know.
Yeah.
I've spent some time this week with community leaders who are just completely at a loss as to the long-term impact on our hospitals, on our doctors, on our physicians, on our patients, on our people who don't have the means that other folks have. And not one of them can feel like they can offer any of their constituencies an explanation of what's coming up, other than the fact that people have to be insured. What's coming up from your perspective?
Well, that's what I hear from Arkansans all around my district, in part because the administration has been so secretive about the way they're implementing Obamacare. We just saw last week, though, that they are delaying critical parts of it. The employer mandate, which requires big businesses to provide health insurance or face a penalty, was delayed because the president heard complaints from big businesses. We still have, though, the individual mandate, which, as you said, requires each individual worker to get health insurance that they may not be able to afford, or they'll face a tax penalty, which I think is deeply unfair. The president is giving a break to big businesses, but not to individual Americans. That's why next week in the House, we're going to be voting on two bills, one that would make that delay of the employer mandate legal, since I don't think the president had the legal basis to do it, and that's a bill that's sponsored by Magnolia's own Tim Griffin. And then we're going to be voting on a bill that would delay the individual mandate as well, because it's not fair for individual Arkansans to pay that penalty when big businesses aren't. And so we delay the implementation of the law, and hopefully in the end we can also delay all of the law and then defund the law and repeal it. And we can return health care back to where it should be, which is with patients and with doctors making their own decisions, not bureaucrats in Washington, D.C.